Okay. So good morning and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, from wherever you are. We thank you for joining the Brown Bag Seminar today. It's on CAADP. Just for those who are not familiar with the CAADP, CAADP stands for Comprehensive Africa Agricultural Development Program. And we are in the second cycle of its implementation under the so-called Malabo Declaration. And among other things that CAADP and Malabo Declaration / commitment are proud themselves is to promote the culture of evidence-based policy making. And that's the reason why we have the biannual review process, biannual review report every 2 years. Up to now, the focus has really been on ranking countries and less on how to use the wealth of data, the wealth of information that has been collected since its inception to assist in policy development, in policy implementation, and of course, policy assessment. Well, so that wait is over because Sam, who's the acting director for Africa within the development strategy and governance unit at IFPRI, has been working on developing the DST data decision support tool linked to the BR, linked to. So today we are grateful to have him. He will be presenting from California, which that it's early where he is. It's 6:07 a.m. Where Sam is. So Sam, I'll pass it to you for 45 minutes, and then we will open it for Q&A session. Sam, over to you.
All right. Thanks, John, for the intro, and also good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are calling from. As John said, for me, my day is just so early in the hours to start. And thanks for joining. So what I like to do is to share with you, basically update you on this decision support tool, which for those of you who have followed some of the things that we've been doing in supporting implementation of the CAADP, this has been something that we're thinking about quite a while back. And during the days of working in countries with James Taylor, we were always thinking about how to bridge the econometrics work with the CGR work that they were doing. But more and more, it seemed that it would be nice to have a simulation model based on the econometrics, which I spent quite a bit of time doing and understand what is happening. So I thought being able to move forward with that idea. And before I start sharing it, I also want to thank all the donors of RESAX, especially USAID and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and allowing us to exploit some of our ideas and funding our time to move it forward. So let me just move straight into the presentation. Those of you who know what is happening in the CAADP BR need no introduction, so I just delve right in. What the CAADP BR does, the Biennial review, which is conducted every 2 years by the African Union at a continental level, is basically to assess progress in implementing the Comprehensive Africa Agricultural Development Program. And it has an innovative scorecard to assess countries whether they're on track or whether they are not on track to achieve the Malabo Declaration targets, which are organized around seven teams, and currently there are 58 indicators used to track that. And this past February, the fourth BR was released at the African Union Summit. And so that makes 4 of the reviews starting in 2017. Now, if you look at what the overall results, you will see that 20 countries were on track in 2017, 4 in 2019, 1 in 2021, and none of them in 2023, which is, you see the declining trend. But there's so much happening behind these general results that is good to know and analyze, because those are what countries are looking forward to in terms of achieving the agricultural transformation objectives. The BR also includes recommended actions. These are based on the highest scoring indicators as well as the lowest scoring indicators, but it is not clear whether and how the recommended actions will actually lead to desired outcomes, say increase in productivity, raise incomes, reduce poverty, etc. So here I like to just show you, if you are familiar or what you are not familiar with the BR report. In there are country pages, so there are details for each country. Here I'm just showing you three examples of the countries. This is from the third BR report: Egypt, Ghana, and Mali, just as an example. And so you can see top part, it highlights the top 5 performing indicators, and then the bottom 5 performing indicators, and then it has some recommendations. And like I was saying, it doesn't really speak to an analysis of the relationship between the actions and how to get to the outcomes. So if you look at generally the top 5 scores, these are mostly on processes, mechanisms, existence of policies, frameworks, etc., which is fairly easy for countries, to demonstrate that they are doing this. And then, but then when you look at the bottom 5 scores, you see that these are the ones that are on the outcomes, like food security, nutrition, where countries are doing poorly. So then the recommendations need to be much sharper, right? So for example, if we take the case of Egypt, we should be asking, what are the policy reforms that would help the country move forward. There's this thing blocking my view. And then Ghana, for example, we can ask, by how much should social protection coverage be increased to reduce child stunting rate? And then for Mali, we can ask, which interventions and policies would work best to bring down the poverty rate? Because those are what the recommended actions are leading to. But because they do not have an analytical concept component behind it, it is difficult to see how those actions will lead to the outcomes. So basically what we're trying to do here is designing a web-based interactive tool that can help answer some of the questions that I put up in terms of evaluating policy options for optimizing achievement of the Malabo Declaration outcomes at the country level. And what we have is an Excel sheet and a partial equilibrium country simulation model, which I'll delve into a bit later. And basically, we are trying to minimize the cost of policies to attain a specified level of outcome or outcomes. And so here, what we do is we do some estimation linking the policies and the outcomes and using the BR data. And we think this is appealing because it is Excel-based. It's using the BR data that those who are implementing it can use, and it's already, the BR already has gained wide recognition. So it makes it very attractive. And this is an interactive tool. So what it means is that the optimization and the scenarios to run is up to the user, right? So we are just designing it and make sure that it can run for several scenarios. We will not be able to run even 1% of the scenarios. It's up to the user to craft what they want to do. What they want to do. And this is for everyone who is interested, researchers, students, policymakers, and also the BR report preparers themselves, because they can do some of this analysis to sharpen the recommendations. So I'll just share fundamentals of the model and then tell you how we are implementing it, and then use Ghana as an application just to show you some examples of the scenarios that we have estimated using Ghana. And then I'll talk about issues and areas for improvement and also scaling. This is a country level model. So we have to do it for the countries that have the data to do it. And then I'll talk a little bit about the next steps. So just to start off with the BR indicators, there are currently 55 indicators, and based on which I've listed on 58 on the right-hand side. It's very tiny. You may not be able to read it perfectly, but it's just to let you know that this is what we're using. And based on my analysis and most of the folks that I've been working with, we can classify them as 20 of them being policies. And here, when I talk about a policy, I mean it's an independent variable that is controlled by policymakers or the CAADP implementers, so that if they change that, then it can also cause change in an outcome, either directly or indirectly via some intermediate result. And the outcomes, changing in an outcome, also is influenced or conditioned by other factors. So here I'm using these labels just to help me be able to talk about them in other slides. So I use P for policies, O for outcomes, and R for intermediate results, and X for other factors. So basically, the X means that these are factors that they are not necessarily in the BR indicators, but they are easy to get. So this would be like things like on weather, that we can get online, because they're important in how the outcomes come about. So we expect that we can classify 20 of the 58 indicators as policies, 32 as intermediate results, and then 17 as outcomes. So for example, a policy will be something like spending on agriculture, right? Agriculture expenditure is a policy. You may call it a policy instrument or a policy variable, but we just want to be simple here. So what it means is that the policymakers can change the amount that is spent on agriculture. It's directly under their control. An intermediate result will be something like fertilizer application. So based on what the policy is, if it's a subsidy, then farmers can decide how much to use fertilizer on their field. That will be an intermediate result. And an outcome will be like food security. So basically, depending on what the farmers are doing and with other factors happening in the economy, then we can observe outcome. So this is the basis for starting the work that we are doing. And then on the right-hand side, like I said, if you go to the 58 indicators, you can see what we have identified as policies, intermediate results, and outcomes. So the model itself is quite simple. The way we have crafted it, like I said, based on those variables. And so on the left-hand side, it's on the objectives and realities of what we are doing. And then on the right-hand side, it's a mathematical expression for those who are interested to see how we actually implement it in the Excel framework. So basically, what we are looking at is the top is implement a policy as close as possible to the target as possible. Like I said, the CAADP BR comes with targets. So for each indicator, there's a target. So for the policies, we want to implement the policy as close to the target as possible. So mathematically, we're just minimizing the difference between the policy and the target. So that's how we will write it out in the Excel framework. And then, like I said before, the policies, they interact with each other and also with other variables via some path. And here the path is what we are using as like a function. And then we based on the relationship between the policies and the outcomes, we can estimate that. And then we use that to develop these constraints so that for each outcome, we have a function that relates the policies to that outcome. And then we want to achieve some target, right? So that becomes our set of constraints on the outcomes. And then we also know that policies are not cheap. I mean, they are not costless, the cost. So we need to identify a unit cost of a policy. So if we want to increase subsidy by 1 unit, we want to increase government expenditure by 1 unit, we want to do something by setting, we need to cost it. And so, and we can only do that within a certain amount of money that we have, which is a budget, right? So these are the 3 components that we use to craft the model, which you can see is realistic, right? The difficulty now comes with determining the relationships, what we are calling these betas and deltas, right? And then also estimating precisely the unit cost. So once we have that, we put in a model, then we can run these scenarios and to identify how we need to change the policies to achieve a stated objective. So these are the assumptions. So we have some assumptions, right? And like we said, we observe, the first one is that we observe policies, outcomes, other variables, and the unit cost, and that we can measure these accurately, right? So if we measure them accurately, then what it means is that the follow-on estimations, we can be confident that they represent the relationship between the policies and outcomes. At this point, we are not interested so much in the actual pathways, because we know to get to the outcome, the policies can interact different ways to get to the outcome. And right now, we don't want to deal with it. So we just want to know the overall net effect of a policy on an outcome. And so that is what we are using for now. Once we become very sophisticated and have more information, then we can add on some modules to look at these unique pathways. So what we do is that we estimate the net effect, basically a function of the outcome based on the policies and the other variables. And we use this nice framework that has been developed called the kernel-based regularized least squares. And we do this for each country using the third BR data, which runs from 2014 to 2020. This is how we get the relationship between the policies and other variables to the outcomes. So this KL is a machine learning approach, which has nice properties. So there's no tedious functional forms to identify ahead of time. We just put the variables in there, and then it estimates it for us because it does some nice things, right? And it estimates the partial derivatives like you would get in an OLS. But here, the OLS will give you an average over your covariate space. Here, it actually estimates the partial derivative for each observation. So for example, for 2014 to 2020, it estimates the partial derivative for each year, which is nice because this is realistic, which you can see that the variables, the way they impact outcomes is that, they are dynamic, and depending on how they interact with other variables, their effect will change. And since those policies and other variables are changing year by year, whether it is slow or radical, then we can also expect that the way that they impact the outcomes will change following those. It also protects against misspecification. Like I said, in OLS, you need to worry about like higher order terms, interaction variables. Here, we don't have to worry about it because internally, the model searches for these optimized interactions of the variables intertemporally, and then also across the different variables. It's good for small data sets like we have. And then it's also in the predictions, it protects against extrapolating extreme counterfactuals, right? So let's say that we observe some policy within a narrow range, but we want to predict an outcome which requires the policy to, like, say, triple or increase by 400 times, then it is not realistic, because to go from a policy and double it 400 times, we know it is something that is out of range. So there's no need to predict such models. Such outcomes. So we want to predict things that are immediate, of something that has been experienced before. So that is why we like this approach. And then we estimate the unit cost of policies. We use data from multiple sources. So when I talk about the case of Ghana, you see how I've crafted them to get an idea. And then we build a simulation model. Basically, we're using the data from the BR on the policies, other variables, and the objectives, and the targets, and the parameters that we have estimated, which I just talked about, to build this model. And then we calibrate it at a baseline. So basically, the way we calibrate is that we use, for example, if we use 2020 as the baseline, then what we are saying is that we want to identify these, how policies can change and achieve a certain outcome around the derivatives that we have estimated for 2020. That is the whole idea. And so we run it and then adjust it slightly so that what we observe in 2020 is the same as what we can expect for the target to be in 2020. And so once we have that, then we have a model which we say is calibrated, and then which we can use now to run our scenarios. So here are the special features, and when we say it's interactive, what the user can expect. So you remember that I told you that when we estimate the relationship between our policies and outcomes, we are estimating it for every year. So the nice feature about this is that the user can select the baseline, or basically select the observation that it would like to analyze these marginal changes. And the intuition is that you can say that maybe a particular year is the year that we actually measured the outcomes, the policies, and the other variables. So maybe that year presents the best case for predicting or for doing the scenarios. So the user is at liberty to choose what it wants. You can also select the number of outcomes you want to analyze. So basically, you can just pick one outcome, or you can pick two outcomes. You can pick three outcomes. The more you pick, the difficult it gets for the model to converge. But like I said, it is up to the user to determine what he wants to do. And so here, the interesting thing is that, like I said, we are not looking for these large predictions out of model, right? So here, things like you can say 0.5%, 1%, 2% increase or decrease in poverty, 2% increase or decrease in food security. You know, you pick the targets that you want to simulate. And then you also have to set the limit of the change in the other outcomes. The intuition here is that once you pick a target that you want to simulate, and the policies and the other variables are changing, they're also going to affect the other outcomes, right? So the other outcomes that you have not selected to simulate is going to change. And so, but here what we are saying is that we want to put a limit on how much you want those to change, which now you can also select them to be 1%, 2%, 3%. The higher the limit, it means the more room you have for the other variables to move around. That is the intuition. Then you can also select whether you want to cost the scenarios or whether you want a cost neutral, basically no cost. So for the cost neutral, here what it means is that we can simulate a change in both the policies and the other variables, right? Because the other variables, we don't cost them. So when we do the simulation, we can allow them to change. And so here the user can see the full range of all the factors that affect the outcome that they are looking to simulate. And then we have this scenario where we can cost it. So here, to cost it, we restrict the model to only change the variables that you can cost, right? So basically saying only the things that you can really intervene in is what we allow it to change. And then here, in terms of changing, you can select whether you want the cost to derive to come out of what is already existing. So it does a reallocation of the existing budget. Or you can also add an additional budget. So you can add, let's say 1,000, if just to throw out some number, so that then the model runs doing some reallocation, but also taking more into consideration what you have added. And then you can visualize the result as a percentage change in the policies and the other variables, and also you will see the outcomes. Basically, a percentage change in the other outcomes, but in addition to what you are looking for, what you are actually simulating, and then also a reallocation or allocation of the budget. So let's see how we apply this for the Ghana case, so that you see what we are doing. And so remember that I told you that we have about 20 policies and 17 outcomes. So using the third BR, we looked at all of these indicators, and basically, because we have a very short model, we are using the indicators that we have data on, and they vary over time. Because if a variable is static, doesn't vary over time, then the model is not interesting for the model, because the model sees that nothing is happening, and those variables don't estimate well. And so that is what we use. So for the policies, here we only have 4 of the BR data itself, and I've given you the indicator number. So, and then these four policies, those who are familiar with the BR indicators, I've also explained it in detail what they are. So, and then we created these 3 additional to make the model more realistic. We also added total expenditure. Total expenditure is in the BR, but it's not an indicator on its own. But we use it because for the things that we are estimating, we know that the expenditure in the entire economy is important. We also include a lag of GDP per capita and annual rainfall, just to make the model a bit more realistic. We know that once we bring in more indicators on the policies, they become more realistic. And also once we cover a bit more of these other variables that we think are important for the individual outcomes, then it becomes more realistic. On the outcomes, the same way, we look at the indicators where you have data for every year, right? And so here we have things like agricultural value added per worker, agricultural value added per unit area, some child nutrition indicators, dietary diversity for women, food insecurity, obesity, international poverty rate, and the percentage of land and the agricultural sustainable land management practices. Like I said, there are 17 policy outcome indicators and 30-something intermediate results. So we can include some of the intermediate results here. Actually, the way we define it is some of these, like agricultural value added per worker, they are more intermediate results, but we also include them in the simulation, which we can do. And so this is what we have. And so before I show you the results, basically what we are doing is that we are estimating each of these outcomes on all of the policies, right? Evidence-based practices, government agriculture expenditure as a share of agriculture value added, government expenditure on agriculture, looking at the research, what is spent on research, the capacity to generate and use agriculture statistical index, total agriculture expenditure, total expenditure, lag of GDP, and annual rainfall. So that's what we are doing, right? So we're estimating each outcome on this. And then we estimate the cost of policies. Like I said, so in there are 5 of them which we can cost. So the evidence-based, basically we use an estimate of setting up a country tax, ag expenditure, and total expenditure. Those are based on the BR data. And then the capacity to generate and use statistics, we base it on the budget that is allocated to the Ghana Statistical Service and the Ministry of Agriculture's Planning Policy Department, Monitoring, Evaluation, and Statistics Research, etc. So we use their budget to estimate the unit cost there. And so here I'm showing you an example of one of the outcomes that we estimated. So this is the outcome on agricultural value added per worker on all the policies and the other variables, right? So as I told you, this is the nice thing about KRLS is that it gives you the derivative for each observation. And here I have just organized the observation by year, which makes tells you that basically each derivative is derived based on its relationship with the variables over the years, and also the variables, the observations across the variables, which is very realistic. And so this is where I was saying that now the user can choose the observation he wants to use for the baseline, right? So you can imagine this matrix for all the other outcomes that I showed you before, right? So which means that you have a very large set of parameters to work with to build a model. So here, this is the model. Basically, like I said, it's an Excel file. So I'm just showing you a screenshot of my Excel, of the file that I've, the model that I've built. And so for the user, if I send you the Excel file, this is all you have to do, right? So basically, you have to identify the baseline that you want to use. This is how you will set it up to run your scenario. The baseline, so here, the default is 2022. So once you pick the baseline, then it will internally load the relevant parameters and the variables for you. And then you pick whether you want to do you pick whether you want to do a cost simulation or a no cost simulation, right? So I've put the unit cost here. If you want to do a no cost simulation, basically you set them all to 0 so that it takes that equation out of the simulation. And then if you want to do a cost simulation, you add a budget. So if you want to do a cost simulation with budget, you add a budget. If you want to do a cost simulation without a budget, then you remove the budget. You set the budget to 0. And then now you can choose what you want to simulate. So basically the outcomes you want to simulate. Here, I have selected, we're going to simulate a reduction in wasting by 1%, and then a reduction in food insecurity by 1%. And then, like I told you, you also have to set a limit in which you want the other outcomes to change. So here I have set the target at 2.5%. So basically what I'm saying is that I don't want the other outcomes to increase by more than 5%. They can always go down as much as they want, but they cannot increase by more than 5%, right? Because, so for example, we don't want poverty to now increase by more than 5%. If the changes in the other variables is going to cause it to increase. And then you are ready, and then all you have to do is you call up the solver. So you call up the solver, and then you run it. And it runs on this nonlinear model. And then once you run it, you get your results. So basically here, I was running a cost scenario with a budget. So like I told you, the lag of GDP and then the rainfall, we can't cost it. So those will restrict, they will not change. But basically, you see how your values, the policies and the other variables need to change to be able to reduce wasting and food insecurity by 1%. You can also see that by running your scenario, how the other outcomes are going to change, right? So for example, agricultural value added per worker would increase by 1.1%, that for land will decrease, etc. So that is what it's telling you. And then here in the bottom box here, you can see how your budget will be allocated based on the changes in the policies. So basically, even though I gave a budget of 987 million, it also did an internal budget allocation of 6.7 million, which means that I had a total funds of 994 to operate with. And then it does the allocation for me here. So you can see where it reduces some of the existing allocation, and then it allocates it to where it's optimized. So next, I'm just going to show you a bunch of scenarios that I have run. Like I told you, this is innumerable. I'm just picking 12 of them. So basically, there are 6, which are 6 using the 2019 as the baseline. And then I just implement the same, but here I'm using the 2022 as the baseline, just to give you a flavor of what is happening. I'm not going to focus too much on the result itself. It's just for you to see that indeed the solutions are unique. But to understand the scenarios, what I have highlighted is telling you the outcomes that I had selected, right? So for example, in the first column, I had selected that I want to reduce wasting by 2%. And then in the next column, I select I want to reduce wasting by 1% and food insecurity by 1%. And those are the ones that I use all over. And then I change some of the things that I told you is available to the user. So for example, in the non-costed scenario, I allow both policies and the other variables to change, and then in one case, I allow only the policies to change. When I cost it, then basically only the policies will change. And I run a scenario where only the existing budget changes. And then in the other two, I add a budget, which I add one budget, and then I slice the budget in half, just so that you can see how it does. And then on the top row here, I also add I add how much I want the other outcomes, the limit, basically the limit on the other outcomes, using 3 and 5% or 2.5%. And then you can see how things changes. Again, like I said, I'm not focusing on the results or the policy implications of the results, because we're just trying to implement it, implement the model as to be sure that we get it runs. And also you can see that I only had a few variables that are affecting the outcomes. So they are not necessarily a good model estimation to begin with. But the main thing is that we are able to demonstrate that we can build this once we have good data, and also we have more variables to include for the outcomes. And then continuing, you also see how the model shapes in terms of allocating the budget for the various scenarios that I did. So like I said, these are only 12 scenarios, but you can imagine millions depending on how you craft your scenarios. And then the more we run the scenarios and fixing some of the parameters, it will allow us to be able to see how the parameters or how the scenarios themselves will change. So some of the things will be that the more constraints you put in, the more difficult the model will be able to run. But the fundamental difference is that running a low-cost scenario and a cost scenario is totally different, because once you bring in the cost element, then the model runs using the least cost ways to optimize the outcome that you want, also based on the direction of the effect, right? Whether it is going to increase or reduce the policy. So let me just end here, get you through my last 3 slides to tell you where we want to go and the next steps. So basically, there are a few issues. The issues are with has to do with indicators, data quality, and time series of the data, right? So on the indicators, like I told you, we identify about 20 indicators, but I was only able to use 4 of them, and 3 I had to create them myself. This is because we have missing data, and also some of the indicators do not change, really, they are static. And so that is an issue. For us, the more that we can bring in the policy variables, then the more rigor we think that our estimated function will be. So we need to craft appropriate variables from the existing indicators. And remember, for the policies, because we're also going to cost them, we need to have the indicators that we can cost, because some of the indicators, the way they are crafted, some of the policy indicators, it is difficult to estimate the unit cost with them. Also, the time series, like I said, is too short, right? Here we only have seven years of data, and some of our outcomes like food insecurity, poverty, these are slowly changing variables over long periods of time. So we need to increase the time series in order to do that. So for example, if we can increase it to, let's say, 2000 or 2003 from the start of the CAADP, that will get us about 25 observations, which I think is solid for us to be confident that the parameters that we estimate are realistic for the outcomes that we are looking at. Also, we cannot make up data for countries that don't have them, right? So we can only develop this model for the countries that have reliable and sufficient data, and then we'll add others as they become available. Like I told you, estimating this unit cost of policies is tedious. So if you take an indicator, which is awesome, we have to bring in is this trade facilitation index. That index includes physical infrastructure, roads, railways, etc., ICT, administration of imports and exports, trade agreements, and immigration. It includes this. So in order to bring trade facilitation into our model and cost it, basically we need to identify the cost associated with a lot of things so that we can craft it following the indicator. But like I showed you, the simulations are still useful, even without the costs, right? We can still run a lot of meaningful scenarios just using the variables themselves without costing them. And then we can add a cost module once we have reliable data, which that one you can see it is not included in the estimation of the original function. So we can include them later on, even when they are online. A little bit on the interactive tool, which I have not shown you the online version, I'm just showing you my Excel file, is that we have a challenge, and the challenge is just finding an appropriate optimization model online, right? That is cheap and user-friendly, that also embeds these visualization tools, because we want the user to be excited on how we can visualize the results. So, and that is, so far, the things that we are finding are very costly, or if they are not, we have to program them in things like R and things like that, countries may have difficulty using. So Neelam is helping me do the research and to find appropriate online, the way we can put them online. And so once we have that, we will do another demo and invite you to come. But here is how we are visualizing the online tool. It will have 3 panels. The top panel will be on the BR results itself. So here, but the user would have the chance to decompose the BR by theme, performance category, and by indicator, basically looking at the percentage contribution of the various indicators to the overall BR score, so that they can see where they are doing well, where they are being weak, etc. And the user can choose different charts, pie, bar, stacked, etc. Anything that helps it to make it more meaningful for the user. In the mid panel, we want the user now to play around with the actual indicators. So here, what we are envisaging is that the user can do different correlations among the indicators. So an example would be you take one policy indicator, one intermediate result, and then one outcome. And then the user can do this trends analysis, can run scatter plots, just to get a feel of the preamble to when we do the actual estimation using the KRLs. So the user has a bit of understanding of how the interactions work. And then we also anticipate that the user can give us feedback on the abnormal values of the indicators, which is now becomes an input into running the model. And then the model panel is a feature of what I've presented to you. This is the most exciting part. The top two is easy to do. It's easy to do online, but we know that those are not exciting. And so that's why we don't have anything. I didn't show anything on that. And I've already presented the features that the user can play around with and how the results will do. So basically, if you run a scenario and it doesn't work, you will just get a no solution response, and then you will just have to readjust your scenarios. So where do we go from here? Basically, with this proof of concept, the main things is to identify the countries, a few countries at a time, that are interested and willing to address the data quality issues, and also to be able to extend the indicators, relevant indicators to the time series that I have indicated. Those of you who follow our work in the BR process, you know how we've been trying to push on the data quality and also a long time series, but different people see this differently, right? Because some of them see the BR as for a specific thing, but we would like to see it as look at the big picture, and to bring in all these features that help to make the results more meaningful, so that we can now work with the countries to develop the model. We start with a no-cost version because, like I said, it does a lot of things, and can complement nicely the current BR report. And then we train them to use it, and then based on how they are using it, and the confidence that they have, then we can delve into adding the cost module to it, and also as the cost module become available, and then work with countries at the time to do it. And so even before we build the online tool, basically we're just building the Excel model, and we can give it to the country, right? Because it's a country model, so we give it to the country, and then they use. And so this is it. So if you are interested in to check out the model I have done in Excel, just zap me an email, and then I'll send it to you, and then we can chat. You can play around with it, and also help me to optimize the features and how to brainstorming on how to move forward. Thank you. Over to you, John.
Thank you. Thank you, Sam. This is really great work, and congratulations. I know how tedious this was, and I'm glad to see where it is now. So this is long-awaited tool, as you even mentioned it. I said in the beginning, the BR is still used only for ranking countries, using all the 58 indicators without any logical relationship between them. We would like to go beyond, and the DST provide that opportunity to not only have that structural relationship between indicators, but to play around. You know, I envision the Minister of Agriculture in his office with his iPad or laptop, playing around, doing some simulations. I think that's where we want to go. There are still some challenges on the data and other things, but yeah, congratulations for this. So I have my own set of questions, but I will open it up to the audience. So if you have a question, either you put it in the chat or you raise your hand. Hopefully I can see it, and you'll be called to ask your question. Please, who goes first? Okay, Tankari, yes. So we have Tankari, and so we will take 5 at a time. Sam, if that's fine.
Yes, yes. I'm also looking online on the thing, so I'm also jotting down some notes, which I will add when I respond. So yes, let's take a few questions. Yeah.
So Tankari, you first, and go ahead.
Good morning or good afternoon. My name is Malabo Tankari. I am from academia. I would like to thank the presenter for this for sharing this interesting finding. So I would like to know currently, how do you ensure that the solutions that you are getting is the optimal one? And how do you deal with the corner solution with the models that you are using? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tankari. While waiting for the next one, I have two questions, Sam. The first is, how flexible is the setup to change in visions, not change in policies, but change in visions? We are working on post-Malabo agenda, which will be a change in vision, meaning that some policy instrument may no longer be relevant, some outcome may not be pursued. How flexible is the setup to accommodate that change in the vision? The second is this is tied, the model and the setup, to some sort of a theory of change that one need to understand, either at country level or at the continental level. How is that taken into account? And then the last one, what is the meaning of the objective function compared to the AATS, the African Agriculture Transformation Score, which is supposed to be the ultimate objective for all the CAADP participating countries. Yes, Suresh, you next.
Thank you, John, and thanks, Sam, for an excellent presentation. I have a couple of questions. This is something, again, this tool is an excellent tool. Broadly, my question is, will we have an opportunity to train our local collaborators and colleagues to use this tool, and what is the plan for that? And is there a way to decentralize this tool at a sub-regional level or sub-country level, district level kind of thinking, because the changes in agroecology, and take it further down that line? Just broad question. Yeah. Thanks. Congratulations again, Sam. Good presentation.
Thank you, Suresh. Sam, let's take those first, and then we will take the next round.
Yes, John. Let's do that. No, interesting questions, and very useful ones. So some of the in the beginning, I forgot to say that I benefited from a lot of brainstorming sessions with many of you online, including Sunday, Tankari, John, and others in thinking about this. And like I said, starting with interactions with James and Carl, Paul, etc. So this is really exciting. Now, Tankari, so the way one of the fundamental ways to know that we have an optimal solution is that in the KRLS, like I showed you on the results, it predicts, it does a prediction of the outcomes for each observation. And so, but as you know, because I am estimating the outcomes individually, bringing them in the model frame means that the model now has to take into consideration all the outcomes at the same time in terms of the constraint. So the way that we think that we are optimizing it is that we are comparing the solution. Like I said, when we calibrate, we are evaluating the result against the predicted outcomes from the KRLS model for each of them. And so that is how we are predicting it. And these are unique solutions. So when we try starting from different values and to see that we are arriving at the same optimized level. And that when we add new scenarios to old scenarios, we can retrace our steps to go to the original solution. So those are the internal things that we have done to ensure that the model is optimizing. John, yeah, 3 things. Flexibility to the vision. So basically, the fundamentals, maybe I take the 2 together, which is also the theory of change. The fundamentals is with the estimation of the parameters, which, as I said, in the KRLS, we are not worried about the functional form, right? Because your theory of change would say that if we change a policy, then we're anticipating that it is going to impact certain value chain, let's say, behavior, and that will lead to an outcome. But here, because we are interested in the outcome, it's in general the net effect, we are at this point not worried about the pathways. And so you can think of it as a reduced form. We are estimating these several reduced form functions of the outcomes on their policies. And so those are the 2 things that we're interested in. So it folds in several theories of change and several visions, to the extent that the outcomes and the indicators that we have are the relevant ones for the vision, right? So the way that I like to even interpret the results is that it can also help identify to say something about the current outcomes and the indicators that you have. So for example, if consistently there are variables that do not have or have very little net effect on the outcomes, then it may be an indication that we don't really need to worry about tracking them, right? So that is how I will interpret it. And so when you have new, let's say in the new in the post Malabo agenda, based on the theory of change that we have said that we're going to help develop, we identify new indicators. It is easy to bring them into the framework. Basically, what it means is that we just have to estimate the model. Now, the good thing is that we can estimate the model, the KRLS from the start using a large range of variables that are important for each of the individual outcomes as the theory on its own, right? So, for example, for the poverty, if you take poverty or food insecurity, the literature already has, the literature on the factors that affect the outcomes, on those outcomes are pretty set. So what we need to do is that we can estimate the model and develop the simulation tool based on those indicators. And then for the vision, when we run the scenario, we can leave out the variables that may not be important for the different outcomes. But the nice thing is that it is good to have the variables in every outcome, because even if it affects us to a small extent, it is the accumulation of effects that become important, because we are looking at the reduced form. So that is how we can be able to think about the way we would add or modify some indicators. So the important thing is to first start with the literature on the variables that affect the outcomes that we're interested in. And those are the variables that will be important to bring into the simulation, the estimation and the simulation model. On the objective, what we are minimizing here, the difference between the policies and the targets, they are consistent with the scoring methodology. The difference is this: we don't want to use the scores because currently the scores in the BR do not represent the full range of the indicators. If for those who know how the scores are developed, you know, they have these cutoffs, and basically they just limit the variation in the indicators. So using the scores as the analytical basis is just not reliable, and you have a lot of variables that get bunched as 0 and 10, and those are not useful for policy analysis. In the chart, there was somebody had asked, can the model differentiate or repurpose to differentiate, disaggregate for different stakeholders, for example, farm size, large farm size, and assess how different policies would look. At this point, we haven't explored it because, like I said, the intermediate results are not interesting at this point because they add too much complication in estimating the betas and the deltas. So to do that, you need a structural model, right? You need a structural model, which we are trying to avoid to start with, because once you have a structural model, then the structural model will differ for different outcomes. And so once you throw in these farm sizes, then you have a really large matrix to estimate. And then your biases and your omitted variables will begin to creep in. And that is what we want to avoid. So at this stage, no, we cannot differentiate. We cannot differentiate for them. What the best way to do a differentiation is to develop the outcomes, disaggregate the outcomes for those different stakeholders. So, for example, for the ag productivity, if we can disaggregate ag productivity for smallholders, disaggregate ag productivity for large farmers, then because now they become unique outcomes, then we can see how the policies affect productivity for smallholders and affect productivity for large scale holders. That is the way to differentiate it. So any disaggregation has to be done at the outcome level, right? Of course, we can also disaggregate policies targeting different people or different stakeholders or different value chain actors. Suresh, yeah, training is critical. Right now, at least in the conceptual way, and also in the BR process, the training is we're already sensitizing and doing I would say tidbits training within the BR framework, the way that the African Union is organizing the countries and the regions. It is the same way we are using to get the data from the regions and the countries. And so we would like to embed the training, any training plans, making it available to the countries within that framework. Because, like I said, this is to help complement what the countries are already doing and what the African Union are doing on the BR. An interesting thing that you raised, or an interesting aspect to your question, would be two things. The first thing is on the subnational level. At this point, no, this is a national level thing. I need to think about it a bit more. But in the same way as I responded to the farm size question, is if we can disaggregate the outcomes subnationally, then it is easy to build a model accordingly. Disaggregate the variables subnationally and also disaggregate the outcomes subnationally, then we can do that. That also leads me to another point, which is thinking about a model at the regional and also at the continental level. One way to do it is first developing the indicators at the regional level, because we want to avoid running the model for all countries in a region. The data will just be too large to manage. And so we first need to develop the indicators at the regional level and also at the continental level. So then you have the same number of observations and the same number of variables at the regional and the continental level. And then we can run the model, develop the model for the separate regions and also for the continent. I think I have dealt with the various ones.
Yeah, there is one question from. Yeah, there is one question. Thank you, Sam. There is one question from Jeff. Hello, Jeff. Great to have you on the chat. I can read the question.
Yes, please read while I scroll.
Yes, at the present, we do not have much evidence on the relevance or value of any given policy that has been used or implemented to date. How can or will this tool help inform this issue? Will it be adaptable to new or refined outcomes that may be in the new declaration?
So can I add just a bit?
Yes, go ahead, Jeff. It's good to hear from you and to see you.
Yeah, good to see you guys. It's it's really great work, Sam, and I do think that you've made a lot of progress there. And I do actually see what you're doing is trying to create the tools and put them into the hands of some of the individual policymakers, so it does not appear that you're attempting to prescribe anything to people. Right, but from the point of view of some accountability, this is relating back to the BR and some accountability. The question really comes back to, are the policies that are currently being used relevant to the kinds of outcomes that are being sought? And so there is some analysis that would usefully be done to help inform this issue of accountability, right? And so you've answered many of the points that I've sort of raised, but this is actually a pretty important issue. If you're doing this under the context of the BR and the accountability, how is this informing that accountability process?
Yeah, Jeff, this is the crux. This is the crux here. And as you know, in a lot of the work that we have done in the past, we have focused on the policies, or maybe the policy variables that have been easy for us to measure, like expenditure and things like that. But a lot of the actual policies, the way we understand them as being implemented on the ground, have more to do outside of the way we have been measuring them. And based on my knowledge of some of the work that has been attempted in trying to measure these policies, work by FAO, etc., they are very difficult in the sense that a lot of the current policies have to do with whether or not a policy exists, which, like I said, in this framework, the things that we are doing, it is not exciting because you really can't measure an intensity of a policy, which the strength comes from variation over time or variation across countries. So if every country says that, yeah, we have a policy on this, it is strong, it is weak, it doesn't work well. So that is why I said that making this very useful is working with countries to be able to craft these policy indicators as close as possible to what they are implementing and be able to bring some cost to them at a later stage. The first stage is really crafting the policies close to what the countries are doing. And so, yeah, this needs a lot of work. So, here, the closest I was able to throw in is this capacity index, one on using evidence-based policies. But, those are fancy for the BR, the way we've crafted them in the BR, but they're hard to actually measure and follow in real life. One of the things is like this trade facilitation index. It makes sense, right? Because that is what our governments are doing. They are helping to improve trade. But if you look at the index, like I showed you, it incorporates a bunch of things that having that one indicator does not become useful in this framework. We need to break them down into the roads, break them down into the administration of imports and exports themselves, immigration and things like that. So that is the challenge. And so we need to think about how to identify these small set of meaningful indicators that capture the policies that are being used. And so if I have to say that I respond to a bit of your questions on the part that we say that they have not been, we are not seeing the evidence, is because we have not measured them. We have not measured them in a manner that allows us to be confident in the way that we use our tools to estimate their impact. So that is what I can say at this point. But you are right that the more that we're able to put this in the hands of the people who are making the decisions to see the usefulness, then maybe we can come closer to what we've been trying to do all this time in working with them to craft the indicators that are relevant. So let me stop here. Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. Great question.
Thank you, Sam. And I think that the tool will also allow us to rank those policies with respect to the outcomes, right? So if you have 10 policy instruments, and then you through all the estimations, we'll know which one is more effective and even more cost effective, because we will have those costs. So we have the effect and the costs related to that. So we can rank those policies, and some of them may not be relevant, at least for that specific outcome that the country is targeting. And of course, there should be a lot of work behind understanding why a given policy instrument is not cost effective, or so that's I think that's the tool can help with that as well. So we still have few minutes, 12. Any other burning question to Sam?
Okay, there are some other things. I don't know whether, John, you've looked at some of the comments and have noted there's maybe a couple in French. I don't read French, so if you can check them out.
Maybe I don't, where I cannot see them. In the
going
chat.
up a little bit. Okay, okay, there's something from Fuseni. Let's see. This tool is handy in the agriculture sector. I am wondering if a multi-criteria decision making with a CGE constraint will not bring more insights. Yeah, definitely. Like I tried to say, Fuseni, in the beginning, that in the beginning we worked a lot with the CGE modelers, Carl, James, which we continue to work with them, use their work in informing the BR, etc. Which for me, this is not my area of expertise. I know their utility, based on because I am an econometrician, and I've not been. I know that we can do more, but I've not been able to bring it into this partial simulation framework, and also based on what I have my interactions with those who have tried to do it. I think that this is complementary. This is complementary. So this is not replacing or pushing it to replace anything. This is to bring more an additional tool that helps for the user to look at these marginal changes around what has been estimated, right? Without predicting these counterfactuals that are outside what has been predicted, which is what the CGA model is very strong in doing, looking at it from an economy-wide perspective, and also in terms of the general equilibrium solutions. So that is where we are raising we are flagging it here. This is partial equilibrium. It is based on the estimate holding a lot of things constant, but allowing it to work because of this KRLS model that we have done, that we have used. And if you look at the features of the KRLS model, which I try to present here, that you see the strength in the utility of this partial equilibrium model, because it allows the other outcomes and variables to self-adjust based on the constraints that you set. So again, the strength is being able to develop the model and identify the constraints that are realistic, and allowing and having confidence, like Tankari was asking in the beginning, in terms of the convergence of the model and the optimization framework behind it. So that is what we are looking to push. And so I think that, yeah, it is complementary and will be useful in the work that the CAADP folks are doing.
Thank you, Sam. Any other question? Okay, I see. Is it Fuseni? Fuseni, can you speak up, maybe?
Yes, Fuseni, please come on board.
Yes, Sam, I agree. I also saw a comment by Marco from FAO. They are doing similar work at FAO. I think what we need is to work more on these Excel interfaces we have been thinking about for some time, so that you don't need to go to manipulate GAMs, to work like a CG guide, so you can run your simulations and build some simple simulation, or even not simple, but you can do only what is needed in Excel without knowing what's going behind with GAMs. Of course, it's better to know the theory, etc., but you can have an Excel interface and have a CG model running behind that with GAMs. So I think that's basically what we need for this kind of work. So we can still have this Excel interface and have a CG model behind it.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Let's talk.
Yeah, thank you for saying.
Yeah.
Any other comment, question from the audience? All right. Looks like people are satisfied, which is a good thing. So I don't know, Sapna, should we stop here? Any other announcement? I'll give the last word to Sam before we close.
Yeah. Thanks, John. Thanks for the comments. I think that this is exciting. At least I am excited because, like I said, this is something that I have been tinkering, an idea that has been tinkering with for a very long time, and I'm glad that I've been able to interact very well with a lot of modelers and benefited from a lot of brainstorming sessions and with funding from our donors who have allowed us to pursue these things in the background. And so yeah, this is exciting, and I look forward to getting it to the online tool. But like I said, this is a country model, so we really don't. What we need is to get this running in a meaningful manner for the countries that are interested with. So we have to work with the African Union, regional communities to help us identify these countries who really want to put effort, because we don't want to develop anything and give it to them to use. We want to develop this together. They're going to use it, test it, identify the issues. We'll help them to upgrade it, and then it becomes theirs. And that is how it also helps us to learn like Jeff was saying, this is important because the development practitioners, everybody wants to back the policies that will help us to get to these outcomes, whether it is the BR, whether it's the MDG, implementing Agenda 2063, you know, that is where we want to go. So the more that we can find the policy actions that get us there, the better we're all at. So yeah, I'm looking forward to working with those that want us to move this forward. And thank you all for your comments, and I'll definitely be reaching out to you guys. So don't forget to zap me an email. If I encourage you to zap me an email so that, you know, I can share this tool, the Excel file with you, and then help me think about it more and make it functional for the countries. So thank you all. Yeah,
thank you, Sam, and thank you. This is very exciting, and we look forward for the next steps. And thank you for joining. And let's keep this rolling. And you know, this is the only way to, again, promote that culture of evidence-based policymaking that CAADP, you know, is championing through the Malabo commitment and, of course, the post-Malabo agenda. So thank you all, and have a good weekend, a good Friday to Sam, and see you next time.
Yeah, happy Easter for those that celebrate it.
Yeah, thank you.